Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Tin Man Score channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor, and today I'll be reacting to another Midnight Tales video for you guys. And the one I picked out is 5 Disturbing True Cemetery Horror Stories. So, without further ado, I'm going to turn the lights off, move the camera up here for you guys, and let's get this reaction on the road and in the bag. Alrighty, here we go.
It was autumn in 2015. I was 23 years old. I'm now 31. At that time, I was living in Lancaster while studying at Lancaster University. For those unfamiliar, Lancaster is a small, quaint town in northern England.
Okay.
As a student, you could either live on campus or in private accommodations in town. I chose to live in a newly built, renovated apartment in a nice part of town. By my third year, I had grown accustomed to the town's layout and felt comfortable and safe living semi-independently with two friends who were also students at the university. Since my first year, I'd taken up running at night, either on campus or through town. By my third year, living in the town center, I would run either with a housemate or alone. One notable thing about Lancaster is that it has a large residential area with hills, removed from the bustling town center, a hub for students and locals, often gathered in pubs or restaurants. Occasionally, I'd run with my housemate, but I preferred running alone, listening to heavy metal, especially Deftones. On this particular day, a chilly autumn evening, I decided to run alone. It was about 8 p.m., and I had my earphones in. I set off toward the more isolated areas, leading to a beautiful residential district and a large green space called Williamson Park, which had a butterfly museum atop a hill.
Me personally, if I'm running, I'm not listening to no heavy metal or Def Jams. I listen to regular rock and roll or just 80s music. But that's just me. I don't know about y'all. Anyway, let's continue.
Next to the park was an extensive graveyard, miles wide, with large yew trees, crumbling gravestones, and even a crypt overgrown with ivy. Especially eerie was the ruined mental asylum on the other side of the cemetery. A small hole in the fence allowed access to the asylum grounds, but it wasn't advised. Guard dogs patrolled the derelict building, making it a place to avoid at night. As I passed Williamson Park and reached the graveyard entrance, my attention was drawn to a small figure standing at the imposing iron gates, which lay at the bottom of a winding path. I felt some apprehension, but assumed it might be someone walking their dog, so I slowed to a walk and approached the shape. As I got closer, I realized it was a child, around 9 or 10 years old, frantically running towards me. She looked panicked and scared. I think she was even crying. Oddly, she wasn't wearing a coat, only a thin dress, which was not suitable for the harsh autumn cold of Lancaster. She asked me for help, clearly frightened. She kept glancing back into the graveyard, which at this point was pitch black beyond the gates. The graveyard was so large that its darkness seemed endless, a chilling contrast with the vulnerable child at the gate. I don't remember her exact words, but I offered to call the local police and dialed 999, putting my phone on speaker. Suddenly, the girl's demeanor changed. She didn't want the police involved. She stopped crying, seemed angry, almost demanding, and insisted she didn't need the police's help.
That'd be a scary sight to see, a child in the cold running up to you. I was thinking somebody probably kidnapped her, but then if she's like, no, don't call the cops, seems like she's involved with somebody to set that person up with a trap. But anyway, let's just see what happens next.
I tried to reassure her that it was best to inform the authorities, and even offered to walk her to the station, which was about a 20-minute walk downhill. This is where things got truly strange and terrifying. The girl abruptly turned and ran back into the graveyard. She went straight through the gates and into the eerie darkness. She didn't look back, just sprinted until she vanished completely. Silence followed. I was spooked beyond belief. standing alone on a darkened street. I had so many questions. Who was the girl? Why was she alone? Why was she afraid of the police? Why didn't she fear the dark? Who or what was she running toward or from? I turned and ran all the way back down the hill, not stopping until I reached a well-lit, populated area. Needless to say, I never ran alone at night again.
Man, that'll be spooky to even see. But I'm thinking she was probably involved with a guy to like lure her into the cemetery to like kidnap her or something. Or she might be a ghost girl, you never know. But who knows, right?
First of all, let me talk about the cemetery and the area around it. The cemetery is visually stunning. It has an open area where you can see all the graves extending into the distance, a spooky, maze-like section where nature has overtaken gravestones with overgrown plants, and a large church located at the far end. It's eerie, but also very beautiful. Before this incident, I never really paid much attention to the graveyard. I only walked past it when meeting friends, taking a shortcut home, or heading to college. The cemetery was next to some very creepy alleyways and a council estate, so you had to be cautious when passing through due to constant rumors of drug dealers, muggers, and various characters roaming around at night. Nevertheless, the cemetery didn't seem interesting to me, until my friend shared a bizarre story involving his brothers and their friends. At night, my friend's brothers and their friends used to play a game in the cemetery. I don't recall exactly what kind of game, but they were just typical teenagers, creating excitement in a town where watching grass grow was about as thrilling as it got. After about 20 minutes, they began to feel something was off. They felt like they were being watched, and the atmosphere turned tense and foreboding. Then one of them spotted something, a person. This person was wearing a cloak and holding something. He was crouching behind gravestones, moving silently from one to the other, getting closer. One of the guys noticed and alerted the others. They all turned. Before anyone could say a word, the cloaked man began chasing them, holding a hammer-like weapon. He was fast, but the adrenaline rush and their sports backgrounds allowed them to outrun him.
So you mean to tell me there's a psycho out there that loves looking at stuff with the Grim Reaper and they decide to dress up similar to him, but instead of a sai, it's a hammer? I don't know if that's the case, people. I'm just judging by what he's saying. But yeah, that'd be just creepy seeing a guy like that in a cemetery. Best bet, you better bolt before he whacks you over the head with the hammer.
They jumped a large fence to escape, and as they did, they heard a loud thud as the cloaked man slammed his hammer against the fence, almost breaking through. Shaken, they made it home and told my friend what had happened. At first, I didn't believe the story, and neither did my other friends. The friend who told us, named Sam, isn't known for lying, and he seemed serious. I thought his brothers were exaggerating, but I figured, why not? I said, I'll go see if this cloaked man is there, and you guys are coming with me. The day after proposing the idea, I began planning. But then my friend David messaged me, saying he had already gone looking for the cloaked man the night before with some friends. His encounter with the cloaked man was less frantic, but much stranger. David had gone with 2 other people. As they walked through the open part of the cemetery, one of them yelled, "Hey, no face!" David tried to quiet him, but he wouldn't stop. They reached a large shed, hid behind a bush, and saw him. The cloaked man was inside, examining a large hammer, a rusty wrench, and a decaying machete. After a while, he left the shed and entered the church, and the church bell began to ring. The sound was loud and haunting, ringing in an odd pattern for about a minute. David told his friends they should move to another spot to watch from a distance. They hid behind a bench, further from the church. Then the cloaked man re-emerged, looking ready to attack, holding an axe. The group started to panic, deciding to leave. But before they could escape, the cloaked man stopped, fell to the ground, and started crawling between gravestones. He was making growling sounds, moving quickly. Abruptly, he rose and smashed one of the gravestones with his axe.
Oh, that's a sin right there. You should never desecrate a grave. And the way that they're describing him just crawling on the ground and making growling noises sounds like he's a completely insane person. Oh, they need to get out of there quick. Seems like that guy is ready to murder somebody.
Letting out a haunting scream up to the sky. David and his friends decided they'd had enough and ran out of the cemetery. The cloaked man didn't follow, but watched them from afar. After hearing David's story, I thought there was no point in going back. We knew this cloaked man was clearly disturbed. But I'm big on adventure, so I suggested that Sam, David, and some others go with me to see what else we might discover. A few days later, our team was assembled. Me, Sam, David, Charlie, and Mike. Charlie was more cautious, and Mike was the witty one in the group. We met at the local tube station during the day. We had planned to go at night, but everyone chickened out. We walked through empty alleyways and council houses until we reached the cemetery gates, which were locked. We climbed over and began our adventure. Unfortunately, Charlie and Mike changed their minds and left, opting to wait for us outside. After a while, we decided to take another route, going through the maze-like section overgrown with vines. As we walked, we began arguing. Sam was bored and wanted to leave. David was indifferent, and I wanted to continue. Suddenly, we heard footsteps. We looked around. Nothing. Sam told me to take out my phone and record, so I did. But nothing was happening. We continued deeper into the cemetery as the path grew darker and narrower. Then I saw him, the cloaked man, hiding behind a large angel statue. He was close. "Guys, I see him behind us. Let's get out of here," I shouted. David, always the curious one, walked back to try to catch him. Not wanting to leave him alone, we followed. But when we reached the statue, the cloaked man had vanished. Sam grew paranoid, feeling like he was being watched. We carried on, and I saw the cloaked man again, further away this time, poorly blending in with the trees. We began running, hiding as best we could. Suddenly, he emerged from the church holding a massive axe and started charging toward us. Even though we were hidden, he seemed to know our exact location. I yelled, "Run!" We bolted through the maze, finding a path lined with tall hedges. But at the end of the path was a dead end, a locked shed. With no way out, we waited, praying he wouldn't find us. After a few tense moments, we slowly made our way back through the maze. The weather turned as clouds gathered, and a thunderstorm threatened. As we jogged toward the exit, we saw him again, standing on a gravestone, hood off, wearing a cliché Halloween mask. We stared at him until he began crawling toward us. That was it. We sprinted, jumping over the fence. Charlie and Mike had already left, but we couldn't blame them. The next day, I passed by the cemetery and saw police tape near the church. I didn't ask what had happened. I was too freaked out to approach, even with officers around. I never found out what happened there, and thinking back, I don't think I want to know. Rumor has it the cloaked man might have been just a caretaker wearing a mask to scare off intruders. Whatever the case, I'm in no hurry to find out.
First of all, I wouldn't blame your friends for not wanting to go into the cemetery. A cemetery could be a spooky feeling place. I wouldn't go at night because you never know what spooks or crazy people will come out. But him being the caretaker of the place, he would not be scaring people like that out of the cemetery wearing a costume with a cloak and a Halloween mask. No, this must be one of them escaped lunatics. And if there's police tape around there, he probably already murdered somebody. That was a good idea that them guys got out of there quick.
I was 18 and the only one of my friends who had a car. I was also way too generous about letting my boyfriend at the time use it. I was taking evening classes at the local community college, and on this particular evening, I told him he could drop me off and take my car to hang out downtown with some friends. He promised to pick me up afterward. Class let out around 8:30 p.m., right on time. I walked out to the parking lot with everyone else, but my boyfriend was nowhere to be seen. I went to check my phone for any messages. Maybe he'd let me know he was running late, but it was dead. I sat on the curb and waited. After about 20 minutes, the parking lot was completely empty. I found enough change in my backpack to make a call at a payphone outside the building. I dialed his number, but it went straight to voicemail. I was getting pretty frustrated, but I waited a bit longer. After about an hour, I gave up and started walking. My nearest friend lived about 5 miles away. I wasn't in a bad part of town, so I wasn't too worried about walking by myself after dark. Anyway, I was too livid at that point to sit still. I remember walking along, snapping my fingers to the beat of some song stuck in my head, trying to make the walk more bearable and distract myself from my anger. It was late by the time I reached the cemetery, about a mile from my friend's house. This cemetery was the largest in the city, spanning several blocks. I kept expecting my boyfriend to pull up, worried and angry, demanding that I get in the car. In my head, I played out the fight we'd have. I was walking past the cemetery, lost in thought and casually glancing at the headstones, when I noticed someone standing there, his figure illuminated by the yellow streetlights. My brain snapped to attention. It had to be after 11 p.m., way too late for anyone to be in the cemetery. This person wasn't walking along one of the paths. He was standing behind a large headstone, about 20 yards away, facing in my direction. I watched him warily as I walked, and after a few moments, he slowly stepped out from behind the headstone. I stared, and it took me a moment to realize what I was seeing. Even in the dim light, I could tell. This man was not wearing pants. I ran the last mile to my friend's house, not looking back, not stopping, even when I got a painful stitch in my side.
Not wearing pants? Okay, this guy must be on weird medication because no normal person would walk out on the street without no pants on. Unless he escaped the loony bin or something. But anyway, let's just see what else she notices.
I remember she was up watching Half-Baked when I finally arrived, and she asked me what was wrong. For some reason, I didn't tell her about the guy in the cemetery. I only told her about being stood up, and that I'd felt like running part of the way. I didn't tell anyone about that night for years. In retrospect, I probably should have called the police. I don't know how dangerous that guy might have been. But at the time, I was too freaked out and too furious at my boyfriend for it to even cross my mind.
If her boyfriend was supposed to pick her up in her car, then she wouldn't have seen that guy at all. Oh, I know they had the argument when he finally was looking for her. I hope he had a good reason too. Taking her car and not even picking her up in it. That's just wrong. And she should have called the cops on that dude, so he would not be on the streets.
This happened around 2004. I was 13 hanging out with my two girlfriends, who were about the same age. We went swimming at one of their houses for a while, then decided to go for a walk. Walks were something we did often, and we would sometimes go quite far. This time, we didn't go that far at all, which I'm glad for because we definitely needed the energy. They lived a bit down the street from our local library, and there was a cemetery near it. The cemetery was medium/large. We would wander past or through it on our adventures regularly. It was starting to get dark, and we figured we should go back to the one's house to change into our pajamas and watch a movie before bed. We were almost there, walking on the sidewalk next to the cemetery. There was a red light at the intersection we needed to cross. One car crept up next to us. The left side of the road was on our side of the sidewalk. We were walking against traffic. Now we were trying to walk a little faster, not comfortable with this car keeping our pace next to us. It was filled with 3 guys that were definitely much older than us.
Just as I figured, probably three older pedophiles seeing three young girls. Oh, yeah, you better get out of there quick before they decide to get out of the car and grab you.
Maybe in their late 20s. They started to catcall us and invite us to get in their car for a fun ride. My one friend decided to tell them off. The men were now screaming at us as the light turns green. They pull into the right lane, avoiding oncoming traffic, go through the green light. We stop walking because we are watching these creeps drive away. Nope. They bust a U-turn and speed back towards us head on. The friend and I scream for our third friend to run. She's an idiot, not moving, so we grab her hands and book it into the cemetery as deep as we can and hide behind the headstones. I was behind one headstone by myself, and my smart friend was behind another couple a few away with the other. She had her hand over our idiot friend's mouth because the dumbass wouldn't shut up. She kept whispering she didn't understand why we were so scared and hiding.
Oh my god, that girl does not understand the situation you're in. Lord, just whisper to her, be like, those are potential kidnappers. Now, shush. I don't know what she don't get about the danger of these guys. I'm glad one of their friends is trying to keep her quiet.
Idiot finally kept quiet when she heard car doors slam from where we ran. Two of the three creeps were entering the cemetery. They started calling for us to come out. They were saying they just wanted to have fun with us. Started saying the disgusting things they were going to do to us when they found and caught us. They were checking behind the headstones, making loud noises in hopes we would scream and reveal where we were. I could hear my heart pounding. They were getting closer to us. I was thinking of all the ways I could run and how I could fight back if they did catch me. I was scared for my friends. They were a few rows away from us when we all heard the third creep call to them to give up on us, little sluts, and come back to the car to complete their beer run. Once they walked towards where they came for a couple rows, us three little sluts ran out of the other end of that cemetery so fast. We crossed the street and hid in the first bunch of bushes we saw that were thick enough for what felt like an hour. We wanted to make sure they drove away and weren't just circling until we emerged. After our time in the bush, we all ran back to the house and collapsed behind the locked door.
You girls ain't no sluts. You did the right thing. I had a gut feeling that they were going to do that, be like, grab them and do naughty things with them, like in a sexual nature. Let's just put it that way. But yeah, when a man gets drunk, they become a-holes and don't know how to treat a woman with respect. I'm glad they got out of there quick while they did.
When I was a teenager, I was goth. Black hair, black clothes, black makeup, and even a pair of combat boots. My friends and I, in typical goth fashion, hung out at the local cemetery. We'd started going as a joke, but soon realized we liked the peace we found there. That all changed one night. My friend called to see if I wanted to hang out, and I did. None of our other friends were available. They were either working or recovering from partying the night before. So we were on our own. My friend picked me up, and we drove up to the cemetery. We were hanging out, smoking cigarettes, and chatting about the latest issues she was having with her boyfriend when we noticed a bonfire had been lit at the top of the hill, about 100 feet away. You have to understand that this cemetery is about a block off the campus of a major university, so it wasn't unusual for college students to go there to party. My friend and I sighed, knowing we'd have to leave soon.
She ain't lying. Cemetery could be peaceful to go to, but it's spooky at the same time because there's hardly ain't no noise. And then also, I'm mad that there's actually people going to a cemetery to start a bonfire. And if it's a cult, oh man, you better get out of there quick.
It was illegal to be in the cemetery after dark, and we knew the police would probably show up because of the bonfire. We decided to finish our cigarettes and then take off. Just then, the most horrible stench wafted down the hill from the direction of the fire. My friend gagged and covered her mouth. I groaned and said, "What the hell?" She shook her head, saying, "I don't know what they're doing. Let's just leave." We got in the car, and one of us suggested, though I can't remember who, maybe we should just go up and see what they're doing. My stomach turned, and a cold shiver went through me. My friend must have had the same feeling because, at the same time, we both said, "No, we should leave." My friend turned on the car, switched on her headlights, put it in reverse, and looked over her shoulder to start backing up. I was still looking up the hill. A figure stepped in front of the bonfire. I could only see a silhouette, but I was certain whoever it was watching us. A feeling of terror hit me, and I said, "Go, go, go, go!" My voice grew louder and more panicked with each word. My friend glanced up the hill, and just as the figure took a step toward us, she slammed on the gas, peeling out in reverse down the hill. She threw the car into drive, and we sped away. We didn't say anything for a while, until finally she broke the silence. "What the hell were they burning?" I shook my head. "I don't know." She dropped me off at home, and I went straight to bed. The next morning, I went out to the kitchen, where my mom was drinking her morning coffee. I joined her, and we talked about her job for a bit when she suddenly said, "Did you hear what happened last night?" I shrugged and said no, I had just woken up. She told me that a woman she worked with had been kidnapped from a parking garage. "Oh my God!" I exclaimed. "Did they find her?" "Yes, but it was too late," she replied. "Whoever took her had assaulted and murdered her. They found her this morning up in the cemetery. He'd tried to dispose of her body in a bonfire." I froze. My mind was racing, the realization slowly creeping up. That's what that smell was. Needless to say, I never went to the cemetery at night again. I think back to our decision to leave instead of investigating the fire. That one decision could have changed everything.
I knew it. It had to be a dead body because once that they were described as smelling a weird stench from the fire, I figured somebody had to be burning the body up there in the cemetery, and the mother confirmed it. That's just awful that the guy assaulted her and then killed her, and then tried to get rid of her body, burn her at the cemetery. So them girls did the right thing and got out of there quick when they did, because if they went up there to investigate, that guy probably would have killed them and thrown them in the fire. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications for more Midnight Tales reaction content like this. This has been another successful installment of the Tin Man Squad channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor. I say that's a wrap, and have a nice day, everybody.